You are listening to the voices of the Occultinarium. Now grab your brooms and let's take flight.
Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of the Occultinarium. We are the voices of the Occultinarium, and tonight's hosts are
Gertrude, the local physician.
Inga, the milkmaid and the cowgirl.
and Leon, the farmer. So, in spirit, today we're going with it. We're rolling. So tonight's episode, as it is the 26th of July as we're recording this, and we are nearing our next pagan Sabbath. We're calling it, depending on tradition, over here on the Scandics, they call it Lammas, and over there it's more popular or commonly known as Lughnasadh, although very many different pronunciations on that one. So we shall cover that tonight. We have just approached the first little harvest, basically. So this is a harvest festival. It's a harvest Sabbath. Lammas, traditionally on around this time, the 1st of August, it depicts the time when when we have just gone from hay harvest. Also, we're just coming from a hay month. July used to be called hay moon or hay month. And the hay harvest is over, and now we're going to wheat or crop harvest. In Scandinavia, especially in Denmark, it used to be rye rather than wheat. So rye harvest used to be the more common crop. And now we're going into the rye harvest season. And end of the hay harvest.
Hey ho!
Hey ho!
Maybe inappropriate.
Typically, historically, that's it's like a period of mostly celebrations. There used to be, for example, no big court or law cases during the era, like during the harvest era. It used to be a very sacred time. So people were supposed to, go more into this, harvesting and bringing in the crops. And that is a very important and a very sacred ceremony in itself. As you know, without crops, without harvesting, you go hungry for the rest of the year and winter and you starve. So it's a very important time of the year. So law cases would actually be big law cases would be laid low. It was called the time of peace, or freder in the Scandics. So peace was promoted, no wars and no strife with your neighbors. There was a tradition that during the Lammas, the beer from Thorra month, which is March, or Thor's month, is where you brew the first beer, and the first beers would be preserved for then Lammas, so they would now be drank. So it all goes around. The very first harvest being especially sacred. So people There's this thing of how people, when they went to get the harvest and when they were going on the wagons with the harvest, they would remove their shoes so as to not to step on the sacred grain. And people would wear their best outfits for the first harvest, like what we would call our Sunday outfits. They would put on the best dresses, the best clothes to bring back the first harvest on the wagons into the farm. And then the lady of the house would also receive it, and it would all happen in silence. So very, very ceremonial kind of thing. And something that was also a thing is that the last and the first straws or sheaves of the harvest would be kept on the fields as an offering. And here is there's a difference in whom the offering was going to, depending on traditions, depending on the country and the time. So we know that in some areas it was going to some sort of supernatural sow, a pig, that would receive the offerings on the field. In some other traditions, I think Denmark as well, it was more going to Odin and his horse Sleipnir. There's some connection that some of that will then also be kept for the wild hunt, which happens later in Yule at the winter solstice, to then give into Odin and his horse. There's also certain traditions where it's connected with Freya. There's also fertility goddess, also goddess of war and death and many things. But also fertility and especially fruit harvest that was connected with Freya. And there's also some tradition with it being connected to the hidden folks, that the offering was given to the hidden folks or the fairy folks. But yeah, so that about what that was going to. But there were a lot of traditions about when these first and last sheaves were taken back from the field and then actually integrated into ritual as well. And it's all harvest, right? It's about fertility. So there's one particular one that I liked. We're not doing this anymore. It's just historical. Or I don't know anybody's doing this, but that was where I think it's the last sheaf was brought into the bed of the lady of the house. So she would sleep with it, and it would be like a ceremonial, or, it would be intercourse in some sense. And then she would get pregnant, and then the child that would be born was the loaf. Basically, that would be, yes, so the child from this blah, blah, blah would be the first loaf from the first or the last sheaf of the harvest. So the whole big fertility thing here again.
It brings a completely different spin to having a bun in the oven.
Yes, definitely bun in the oven. It's the Lammas bun. The name we're not quite sure, but we think that the Lammas was derived from loaf mass, and that being like that first loaf that you make from the first harvest in whichever way, whether with becoming pregnant by it or not. There are also traditions of young women having a wreath of the first harvest in Sweden, as far as I know, actually. And then they would be called fissemor, which is literally translates into cunt mother. Beep. Fertility, excuse me. Or they would make something like a scarecrow, but the opposite, like they would call it a rye hag. So they would make like a person out of like the rye, so birds would come and eat it and then spread it out. That's also like a thing. And otherwise, I mean, it's leading into the harvest season, so lots of feasting, lots of celebrations, lots of boom boom, and I miss that. Like I was reading upon on that, and like back in the days when things were just revolving so much more about farming, there was I feel such a richer tradition in actually celebrating what you're doing and celebrating the seasons, and just thinking of like how you're going in and then the first harvest being so important and the last harvest being so important, and you doing stuff with it, and how things go full circle, like with that bread then going into the Yule period and being an offering there, and then that the beer from the Thorra month would be or drunk now. So it's like it's nice. I like it. I'm missing that kind of stuff. But we can talk.
We also have our tradition.
Oh yes.
So maybe I should harvest a card.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'm going to harvest a card for us for later.
Sounded extremely sacred to me when you said that you're going to harvest a card. Please harvest a card that we then can reap and look at later.
Perhaps our maid, she has been milking too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too much time spent on her chores.
Yes. Maybe the cowgirl fed off the horse and
bumped her head.
Yeah, bumped, or maybe the cow kicked her head while she was milking.
Naughty.
I just don't know.
Cow.
I don't remember. Violent. Remember, there's no violence. It's a period of peace.
A lot.
What happens in the barn stays in the barn.
Oh, dear. Well, I don't
There's
like
no deer in the barn.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I covered some of the llamas, but for the Celtic traditions, Lughnasadh, Luigi, would you like to spend a few words on that while we're getting the card?
Yeah. So I think etymology speaking, in terms of Lughnasadh, I mean, I'm not a linguistic, so you'll have to forgive me. I have to go with what I was passed on or taught or exposed to. So I think the most common way to reference Lughnasadh in terms of translation is the gathering of Lugh, who is a predominantly Celtic god. And there's a few reasons as to why we got the gathering of Lugh. We can think about this time of the year, the Lughnasadh year. It was a time, at least, that, and still to this day, obviously not in London, I think, where I am, but in more rural environments, and maybe in the rest of the UK, who knows. But basically, my point was that in this period of the year, there will be a lot of games, a lot of competitions, a lot of festivities, like you pointed out as well. So I think because they were Lugh, according to legend, was the one that started the tradition of the games. So you got that possible explanation, interpretation, translation. But I also wonder, and there's a lot of debate around this as well. So Lugh, although not inherently a sun god, like it's not like it's necessarily the god of the sun or whatnot, but he is a luminous deity, and has several association to either the symbol or the energy or the power of the sun, or by extension the power of light. And I'm thinking about this being now the season of Leo, and the season of August, at least in Gregorian calendar and whatnot, when is the height of summer, not from a natural perspective, because we had the summer solstice and we know that technically the sun is slowly in decline, but like how for many reasons that I don't know if we can cover here or not, but August is the time of the year in Europe that we all go, the sun is at its peak, we all go on holiday, we all go away. So I'm thinking about the terminology of the gathering of Lugh, and Lugh being light and the sun. So let's all gather around the light, or what the light represents, what the sun represents, and either feast or celebrate or rest, like a time for total and utter freedom. That's kind of a spin that I'm giving it. I'm not necessarily saying that's the way to go about it, but it's a reflection of the season of Leo and the connection between Leo and the sun and its power associated to the season of summer. Although technically Lughnasadh is the beginning of autumn in the Celtic tradition.
Uh-huh.
And it makes a lot of sense because there's two dual core meanings in Lughnasadh, but you can argue that those two core meanings are present in every single Sabbath. There is an element of celebration and there is an element of sacrifice. And I think when I say that it's spread across all the Sabbaths is because if you look at what comes before and what comes after, there is a sacrifice either way, isn't it? Like what comes after is the result of the sacrifice of what comes before. And by sacrifice, I mean the relationship between past, present, and future. But also thinking of the conversations that we had about Litha and the midsummer and the summer solstice, where the battle between the oak and the Holy King, in my very naive and very childlike mind, was like, oh no, my hero has lost to his or hers or theirs enemy. But it's not necessarily that. It's more like, because this is harvest season, like we talked about, it's like the Oak King. The sacrifice is the fact that now the Oak King surrenders the sword or the crown or the throne to the Holy King. So that now, like, the power of the Oak King, and the Oak King again representing an emanation of the sun's power and the power of life itself, has now served the purpose of granting us our harvest, our first harvest, first and foremost, but there's going to be the second, the third, and so forth and so forth. And it's sacrificing its zenith, its power to the Holy King. And maybe that's a way to interpret the sacrifice aspect, as well as, according to legend and tradition, basically not Lugh's mother, but her, what's the word for it? Her adoptive mother, that's a good word for it. She basically apparently prepared the lands. She tended to the land. Again, this is in the Irish Celtic tradition, so in ancient Ireland, she prepared the land and she took care of the land for harvest, for agriculture purposes. Obviously, it was a big toil, and she lost her life because of it. So that, again, I might be going too fast now, but basically one of the many traditions of Lughnasadh is to prepare a corn doll representing the goddess, and that can be the eternal goddess, but it can also be a representation of this myth, like a corn doll in honoring, in honor of, how do you pronounce Lugh's adoptive mother's name? I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation. Teltiu, probably mispronounced it. I truly apologize to everybody who's listening to us. But basically, a corn doll created in her image and in her honor, as she gave us the land to nurture, as she gave us the land to provide for ourselves and for our community. And this theme and this story really can be one of the roots of magic in a way, because there's an alternative version. Hopefully it's not going to be too much information, but there's an alternative version where Lugh, being the savior of the children of Danu, of the Tuatha De Danann, like he's the one defeating, is it the Firbolg, or is it the Fomori? Basically, there were several races invading Ireland, but Lugh was the champion that eventually managed to lead everybody, the children of Danu, to victory, but kept the leaders of the adversaries alive, because he knew, I think his name was Bress. Bress knew the name, according to legend again, but Bress knew the ways of working the land and promised that if they spared his life, his, hers, their life, they were gonna teach to the children of Danu how to work the land. So there's a lot of focus about Lughnasadh and the skill gained in agriculture, in farming, in working the land, and the land also being a symbol of the goddess, like the earth, the mother, always underneath us, always with us, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So that was a very lengthy way to go into some of the meanings of Lughnasadh, traditions of Lughnasadh, and roots of Lughnasadh. Yeah, did that make sense?
It makes sense. Thank you for that. I mean, there's parallel. I mean, I would say obviously parallel, since the cultures are not that far apart. But the crop doll, of the corn doll, as you said, and then the rye hag that was put up, and so that I mean, I bet in a lot of other traditions as well, there will be something propped up, some sort of shape that is then used as some sort of sacrificial goat.
Yeah,
doll. It's recurring, right? It's a recurring thing. Yeah. I mean, as for being modern pagans or heathens, I suppose we can discuss on how we could celebrate it or what we could do in these modern times, although we're not farming, right? Most of us are, some of us probably are farmers. I have a bunch of friends in Denmark who are actually doing they're having farmers or they're farmers, and so they can actually go into this cycle and they can do it quite literally. So for us who are like city girls and gals and persons, it's not so obvious. Like we don't go out and sow actual crop, right, when the time is right to, or when it's time to sow, and we don't go and harvest stuff, but we can do it in other ways, right? We can go and, okay, now if like through the winter period and we ingestate like an idea or something, we say, okay, this is what I want to actually grow. And it doesn't have to be like a physical thing, but something you want to do, something you want to bring into life for the next year cycle. Then you can sow that idea out. You can put your energy into this and ritual. And then once you've done that, now in Lammas and Lughnasadh, you can look at that, what you have sown early, like the ideas, if it's ideas that you've had, if it's projects you want to work on, if it's self-betterment or self-actualization or growing in any way or whatever it is. And now would be a time where you could look at the first results. And if you have first results, right, what does that look like? Have I actually gotten better at this skill? Have I gotten better at whatever it is, not giving a fuck, or better at being more compassionate, or better at actually using my creative processes and actually being creative instead of just letting it stagnate, right? So what has happened in this period, in this year period so far? What can I now harvest in? Is there any sort of first small reward? But also looking at the fruits, right? Looking at, okay, this first crop that I'm getting now, does it look good? Does it look healthy? Can I bring this further into the next seasons? So I think this is might be one of many ways, but one of the things that one could use this period to reflect upon and to actually really look at, okay, what did I sow? Did it grow? Did it not grow? If it didn't grow, right, then maybe for the next cycle, okay, it needs more water, right? It needs more nourishment. But that is one thing you could do.
I also find it a good time because I think obviously summer is such a beautiful season, but I find it like a good time. How do I say this in a proper way? Basically, I feel like in summer solstice in Litha, that's a period to fully go out. It's like the raving night. It's like, where? Hear me roar! Whether to me,
Boop, boop.
Lughnasadh can still be a period of celebration, utterly, but it's because of the edges, because of the imminent arrival of the gates of autumn and therefore further on winter. Setting up the steps or the storage, for whatever it will sustain you. Obviously, we can talk about it in very formal manners, like food, physically food. But you can also look at it from a psychological perspective as the subconscious or the conscious tools that you're going to need to get through the dark season, the darker periods. And because this is the preparation for it, there is an aspect of still enjoyment, still festivity, but reminiscing about what you're truly grateful for. Again, something that you can arguably bring in every single Sabbath, in every single celebration. But here, I find it more fitting somehow. Maybe even more fitting when I reflect on the myths, the sacrifices of the goddess, the sacrifices of the mother, the sacrifices of the previous generation. I think I was listening to some witchy podcasts as of recently, and they were talking about honoring the ancestors. Again, something that you probably do a Samhain, something that you probably do a Yule, but very relevant here because of the connotation of the effort that took to bring forth the harvest, whether it's the present harvest or what's the word I'm looking for? Not cyclical necessarily, but like a multi-generational harvest. So thinking about the three of us, for example, and who are the people that we came from, blood-wise and collective-wise, like how many, forgive me the terms, how many shags it took to bring the three of us into existence, to perform the gifts and the aspirations that we have and we have performed. So I know I'm taking it maybe too far and wide, but it's something that I tend to ponder on during this Lughnasadh season.
Yeah, but I mean that's quite right, and it's fitting, like you say. I mean, the land that we're working on, metaphorical or literal land, is possible because of the generations and generations and generations before us tilling the land and sowing and harvesting and doing the process and making it, optimizing it further. So that's also with all the knowledge that we're having, or the half knowledge, or all these ideas in our head, right? We're taking it from things that came before us and distilling it and harvesting it, So it's we don't usually make up things that nobody has ever made up before. Collective.
Truly.
Taking from things, giving it our own spin, and then giving it on.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you said that people in the cities might not have that, but I think there's a few very lucky people that have allotments, for example, which is quite nice because you have like that little harvest is like this your own little farm that you do. And I guess a lot of people go there to the harvest. You can also have a little party there. But even if you don't have that, I think even going to maybe supermarket is not the right place. But you can go to like a farmer's market or something and get some good ingredients and like, I don't know, bake a bread like we were saying, or you can even, if you have apple tree or pear tree, or you go into the woods, I know in Sweden it's possible, you can pick berries and things and you can make preserves. So it's more like a material thing that you can do, and you can actually implement that, because if you're making preserves, for example, you can use it later on for Thanksgiving, for example, for Christmas. So that's pretty cool too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that whole harvesting, like I also have some friends who go and pick stuff, and I do a little bit, but I don't have the mental sustainability. It's not quite the right word, but this thing of like, okay, I do this and then I make the next step and then I make the next step. My ADHD is just gonna be this. It's like the first step is done and then I forget about it. But not I mean, not a farmer, but anyway, in the period now, because obviously there's different times in the year where you can actually pick things, and some of them are much earlier than now. But now is the time where the berries are ripe here, and the apples start becoming right here. So it just is going out. I mean, even if you live in the city, and I think when I was living more in more city-esque areas, I mean, I live in the capital, but it's Oslo, so it doesn't count. There's forest everywhere. But when I used to live in not so rural places, we would go to strawberry fields, for example, and pick strawberries. It's one of the heights of summer as a child, going to the strawberry fields and just we're picking them, but we're eating them, and then we're picking a bit. And then my mom would make lots of jams out of everything. We would pick strawberries and other berries, everything. And I mean, that's now, that's the season, right? We're going out now, and there's raspberries out there, and I pick, and there's blueberries are starting to come now, pick them, and sometimes I make jam out of it. And then we eat it until the next season. So yeah.
I wonder whether because it's very red fruit focused. Let's leave the apples not leave them aside, but because to me apples are very much of Mabon era, but we can include them. But basically, I was focusing about the raspberries, the strawberries, and that could be an aspect of, or a metaphor for the blood, the blood of the land, as in what the juice that comes out of the fruit once you harvest it, collect it, and make it into whatever you want to make it: conserve, jam, juice, and whatnot.
Wine.
Why?
But that is also later, I guess.
Strawberry wine. Yeah, no,
the nourishing blood.
No, because again of this aspect of sacrifice. But I also wanted to mention, especially in correlation to our discussion of the previous video with the Five of Wands and the season of Leo and its connotation to the children, the fifth house and pleasures and games. Maybe that's also another aspect that has influenced this principle of this time of the year, we're playing games, we're having competition, we're having gatherings and festivities. I wonder if it's all, I wonder, I have a gut feeling that, it all makes sense, it all checks out, but I don't want to sell it as the absolute truth. But I wonder again whether this Leonic season and energy has somewhat spreaded into all sorts of different traditions and, systems and calendars, all that rotate around having fun and celebrate and express utter gratitude and pinch of folly, perhaps. I wonder. It just rotates around my mind, and I'm like,
Then we go out and actually experience how hard it is how much hard work it is to actually farm the crops and harvest them by hand. Yes.
Well, we are so spoiled.
We are so spoiled. But so this is just the first harvest. There's, we go into the energy of Virgo, and that's where we're having the big harvest and collecting everything. And yeah. So it's a bit more lighthearted, I guess. Now it's a bit lighter.
Because I think I might be going wrong with the order, but I think it goes in order with first harvest focusing on grain and corn and wheat. Sorry. And then you got
technically you have the grass first, right? You have the grass, so you're just coming from the hay month, but that is easier to reap. You just, so we have the hay, and then we have the crops, and then we have the fruits. And of the earth,
fruits
as well,
and the veg, and then eventually I don't know. Do we include the meat? When
in October,
meat is all year round.
The hunting season in October. That's the hunting months, just before winter.
Yeah, because you got the final harvest in that particular season prior to the winter, the heart of winter. So so much to think about when it comes to the different traditions and what they symbolize in our daily life, in our modern life as well. I guess because it was so difficult to stay alive, both from a perspective of, longevity, but also from a perspective of motivation. I guess it was very important. It still is, don't get me wrong, but it was very important to celebrate. You had to have things to motivate you to get to the next day, to get to the next cycle, to get to the next season of the life, because otherwise, how we eat, not easily, forgive the word easily, but how there's a a global pandemic of us stuck in a 9 to 5 and leading not necessarily fulfilling lifestyles that leads to a decline in mental health. Now we're taking the episode to a whole different direction. But, I'm comparing this as I wonder how it must have been when you really have to be with your hands on the ground, really work with the conditions of the weather and whatnot, the lack of technology even and whatnot. So again, creating these circumstances which are fun circumstances so that people will be relieved. That will be like, at least what I've done today paid off. It allows me to enjoy this right now.
Yeah, but also markings of things is just so important, and we don't do this that much anymore. So just marking. My words are failing me today. It's one of those days. But you said early, like in the other, like transformation, but that's not what I mean. But when you go from one state of life into the other, like for example, you're a boy and now you're becoming a man. You're a girl now you're becoming a woman. Like these kinds of ceremonies, for example, and they used to have much more focus, and they would really bring into focus, bring into light much more that the changes in your own life cycle as well. And that was celebrated, which a lot of that we don't even look at now. It just happens. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, you got your first period, whatever. Okay. Or this and that happened. Oh, you're starting to grow a beard. Well, whatever. Here's your shaving cream or whatnot. Right. So it's not celebrated when we could celebrate these very particular times. We celebrate birthdays, I guess. We celebrate that. And then we have, but there's so much more that actually deserves to just take a break from what is mundane and from what is the 9 to 5, like you say, from what is the normal rhythm, deserves to take a break, deserves to take a breath and reverence and attention, especially in our time of age where attention really is of extreme rarity, scarcity, and high value. Just, scroll. So
the attention deficit.
The attention deficit. So taking a time out for anything that can have or has any type of value is so important. So we can do it with the seasons, but any stage of life, I think we just have to celebrate it more. Take the time out and do something. Be aware when we do it. Because we can go like, okay, now this weekend I'm gonna take a time out, I'm gonna go to the beach or whatever, right? But make yourself aware of what you're doing, and you can make it ritualistic in that sense. Deepen its meaning. Yeah.
And forgive me the terms, but the Leo, the sun, what else do they demand but attention?
That's right.
Very much on the nose. I know,
on
but
the nose, yes.
Nonetheless.
But I think
that's very Leo-esque.
Right now, well, the way we live now is just extremely unnatural. This whole 9 to 5 thing and everything that we do, everything from the calendar to the way we celebrate birthdays, all of this is just extremely unnatural because it just gives you a time. It's all about calculating 9 to 5. This is 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I finished, and it's there's no, like you said, there's no stopping. Also, with the days, we just calculate, we're going by the calendar. We're not going by the actual seasons. So, does it actually really matter exactly how many days there are in a month? Because when it's cold, it's autumn. So that's when autumn is. And it's the same thing with these things when, like you said, when you have, when a woman gets her period, for example, it doesn't happen like on a calendar day. It just happens on that day. Then you have to, then that's the day. So the way we live nowadays is just extremely unnatural.
Yeah, it's very unbalanced.
It's quite interesting, Yeah, and it's interesting, we just, exactly. And it's, to me is a little bit, it's almost kind of similar the way a lot of people look at the Sabbaths as well. Because a lot of people say, today is the 21st. This is the day, but maybe it should coincide with like a full moon. So it doesn't really matter if it's been celebrated on the 18th or on the 23rd. or it's slightly different every single year because that full moon will be on a different date. And I know it's difficult as well because we have Mondays and weekends and weekdays and people work. So it's like, oh, I can't celebrate it on that day because I'm working. So I have to it's just very unnatural that way.
Yeah, we should really be able to have red days like the pagan days, just when things actually happen, be allowed to take a day off them. That would be amazing. I advocate for that.
It's funny because I looked into it. This has become such a modern conversation of an episode, isn't it? But I looked into it with my manager, and they had me look into the policy of our organization, and they said it's at the discretion of the manager. So if the manager, you have a good one, in my situation at least, and if you have a good one that understands the reason why I want them off or I need adjustment to my time, then yeah. But if they're not on board, then you go without, or you have to apply for holiday. Which is makes sense. It's reasonable. I just feel like because you don't get so much holiday allowance, and you want to use it cleverly, so speaking. Because although I am very dedicated and devoted to my craft and to my pantheon and whatnot, it is hard work. To create a ritual, to display yourself vulnerable in front of your deities and do all the reflections and the channeling. So although it's something that I'm deeply grateful for, I wouldn't necessarily call it a holiday, oh, garçon, another one, please. It's not on the same level.
No, but it's a holy day. Yes, but it's a holy day. It's a sacred day that you should be able to, if you are in any way religious or following some sort of faith, should be able to celebrate that. And
exactly.
Our calendars just have the holidays and the red days according to the Abrahamic or the Christian religion. So Christians will get off, and some stores they close because it's the so and so and so. It's like Virgin Mary doing whatever. And then we get a day off, and I'm like, I could work that day because it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not gonna go to church. I'm not, but I can't because it's closed. So I can, and then I do not get an extra day off just because I actually have a holiday on another day. And that's where the imbalance is. And I think they're doing it for the Abrahamic religions. They're being more not lenient, but even other Abrahamic religions are getting their days off if they're having something
more accommodating.
That's happening. Yeah, they're more accommodating, thank you. But not so much for us, slightly more underground.
The pagans and
which is really crazy, to be honest, thinking about it, because we were here first.
Yes,
that was here first, right?
Yeah, but, it makes me think unrelated, but it makes me think about the reel on Instagram and probably in other platforms. But it's about this content creator that there is a gathering about the solstice. And then people come in and take over. First, I am not explaining it very well, am I? I'm not doing it justice. But it's all the people that came over and took over the pagan traditions, and it's just a very funny video. If I can find it, we can link into our video. But it made me think of it the chronological order, everything.
There's always somebody who came before, right?
Yeah.
But to bind it back to what you said, Amelie, with that it's so unnatural and that there's no real rhythm. One of those things that you said, we have celebrations with Sabbaths that align with the sun. They need the solstices and the equinoxes, right? And we have some that align more with the moon. And traditionally, those have been counted more okay, we're doing it. It's the first full moon after the so-and-so, or after the equinox and after that. And that's when we used to celebrate. And then to make it simpler, that just shows, okay, we're just doing the first, the first certain date that's closest to it. And then they're stuck with it. But even we're not getting those off either, some of those. But also with that arrhythmia that you were talking about, this is how I think we can use these Sabbaths to get us back into a rhythm, to get us back into that, okay, boom, now actually this is happening. Because we do get into our heads, right? We do get into our lives. We do it was just midsummer, and now suddenly it's Lammas, it's oh yeah, and then you can focus again on that and bring it back and bind it back into your ceremonial life. So
I am very curious though, if you're able to talk about this. What is, because I haven't memorized the calendar of the runes yet. What would be the rune that falls under the season of Lughnasadh?
putting me on the spot. Barcana, I would say.
And that's
That's
Arcana.
birch.
I know.
That's very feminine. But I should probably look it up before I say it because that was a little bit spontaneous, but I think that's correct. Because you're having, but it depends on how soft you have the wheel. But if you're having algae there, that should be a Barcana. And then we have the lake, Lagus, for Mabon.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yes, they both are. Yeah.
Shall we
They're
reveal?
all nice. Yes,
Absolutely. Shall we reveal Amelie's card? Well,
Yes.
the card for the episode.
Card for the episode.
Thank God my sound is back.
Yeah.
I lost you guys for a second. What do you think it is?
Is this solar? Yeah, is this solar related at all? Do you think?
No.
So it's not actually something Leo that would make total sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really make total sense
it
to me,
doesn't.
actually.
No, okay. Then let's just reveal it, because if it doesn't.
Is it a minor?
It's a minor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm guessing if it doesn't make total sense, maybe it's a sword card.
Yes, I also think it's a sword. Yeah, it's a sword.
It's
what
definitely
sword
a sword.
we invoke?
Is it the 8?
No, but it's very close.
7.
9.
Oh,
It's a 7.
9. It's a 7. It's a 7.
7.
Okay.
It's
okay.
a 7.
Show us,
you know what?
show us a pretty card.
The 7 of swords maybe doesn't make too much sense, but in this deck, it's pretty. Because it's 7 of air,
Cute.
and apparently she's a shapeshifter. And what I
Ooh.
remember from the description of this deck is that the fairies in the back here, they're like the council. So I think it's one fairy for each element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can
That
see
is
the
a
symbols.
beautiful deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But yeah, the 7 of swords.
Verhexa power deck. If anyone wants to know.
Verhexa.
Verhexa.
Bewitched, right?
She's so talented.
Yeah.
I forgot. Is it MJ? MJ, I forgot
Yes.
her name. Yeah, Cunningham.
Yeah.
But
Cullingham.
she's incredibly talented.
Mm.
One of my favorite deck of hers is the Crow's Tarot. That's so beautiful. Yeah, I can see to an extent some resonance with the seven of air, 7 of swords, and our conversations. Because I was thinking about, I know that the focus on the battle between the Oak and the Holy Kings came more in theme during Litha and the Summer Solstice, but we're still seeing the products of it, if you will, still in Lughnasadh. So I guess it can be an aspect of the 7 of air or the 7 of swords in this season where we're still dealing with the, I don't know if action and consequences is the right way to put it, but the causes and effects of this cyclical season. And although we're still in a season of power and life, the knowledge that we're gradually walking, rolling, rowing, flying, whatever method, toward the later season, the darker season, the winter season, the night season, the night. And that can be another aspect of the 7 of air. I know there is a key meaning of the secrecy levels of the 7 of swords in general, and that can be like a resistance, like, I'm not ready to come forth in the kingdom of the shadows. How do I retain my place in the kingdom of the sun and bask in its beauty and essence? That can be something that at least I'm picking up from the 7 of air. But what do you guys think?
So this is the first time ever I'm seeing this card in this deck, but what struck me with the combination of the 7 of like airs or swords or whatever it is, it seems very resonant to what we just talked about, like in the last few minutes of the pod, with how the pagans don't really get that their time to celebrate the Sabbath or being out of rhythm. And it looks like, from what I see from the card, with this lady, clearly like this pagan or Celtic lady, being submerged in, it looks like she's like just half covered or like submerged in the earth, and then
Foliage.
people, and then others judging her. So it seems like the witch who wants to, go into that celebration and wants to merge with the earth and the elements and wants to be in her spiritual self and wants to be able to embrace it. And then the background is just like, no, you know what? It's 9 to 5. And it's not the season of the witch. And so I'm kind of getting these associations in combination with what we talked about. This trying to establish and trying to go and work with the energies and the rhythm of nature, and then just being something else, being there, being like, yeah, no, we're making it difficult for you. So the traditional depiction of the smith deck with the person taking these swords from camp, where you have this idea of like maybe he's stealing from camp, or he's like in between two fighting sides and is trying to make it a bit difficult for the others, or whatever. There's so many interpretations, but yeah, this kind of level of secrecy and of working against, of doing things against what the common,
the establishment.
Plebs establishment do. So you're working against them, you're doing something else, you're doing something different, you're trying to establish that even. So that's kind of like the pagans trying to do their holidays and trying to go back into the rhythm, while the rhythm of the world and society is very contra that, right? Contradicting that and trying, so there's this push-pull of that energy. And so I think that fits, actually. It fits. Doesn't fit to the season, but it fits to the struggle that we're talking about. So it's
Yeah.
If she's trying to sneak away from work, she actually has to go to her 9 to 5, but she's sneaking away.
She's going into the Sabbath.
She's going.
I wonder, because she's also been drawn by her Aquarian alike. Amelie, so yes. I don't know. Do you remember which one is your decan of birth, Amelie? Is it the 5, 6, or 7 of swords?
6 of swords.
Okay.
6 of swords, yeah, 6 of swords.
Yeah. Lucky you.
That's the better one. That's the easier one.
Yeah. Phew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but she's supposed to. The lady is supposed to be a shapeshifter.
Mm-hmm.
So
she does look,
hence why I think she's kind of submerged. So she's like one. Yeah, she's one with the.
We strive to be
earth.
With the leaves.
With the leaves. Okay. Wow. Any last word?
No, thank you for this beautiful exploration of Lughnasadh, and I hope that we all and you all and us all, we get to spend a beautiful Lughnasadh season.
Definitely reflect a little bit on what we're harvesting. Yeah. Take some time out. Yeah. Revenant.
Bake some bread.
Bake some bread. Get
bun
the
in
bun
the
in
oven.
the oven. Well, we'll think.
Put a bun in the oven.
Bun in the oven. That's the word of the day. Oh dear. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, comment below. You can find our link tree below as well if you like to buy us a coffee or a chocolate bar or whatever else fits the occasion. Thanks so much for joining, and blessed be. See you next time.
Blessed be.
Bye.
We are the voices of the Occultinarium. Welcome to the rabbit holes.